Stugotz here. Spring is your chance to make your lawn look like the perfectly trimmed work of art you watch your favorite team run across on TV. But before you get to work, make sure you can get to work. Advance Auto Parts will test your lawn and garden battery for free. If it needs to be replaced, grab an Autocraft lawn and garden battery starting at just $22.99. Plus, enter the code DAN20 when you buy online to save 20%. Think ahead. Think Advance at Advance Auto Parts. The Dan Le Batard with Stugotz Show podcast is presented by Capital One. This is Banking Reimagined. ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive's Home Insurance. Get your quote today at Progressive.com. All guests of the Dan Le Batard Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Here's your SportsCenter update. NFL news, Jason Witten signed a one-year deal with the Raiders. He did? Wow, Witten. Monday Night Football booth to the Raiders. Teddy Bridgewater has signed a 3-year, $63 million deal. $63 million for a guy who's never thrown more than 14 touchdown passes in a season. Amazing. The Eagles will not pick up their team option on Malcolm Jenkins. An Ottawa Senators player whose name has not been released has tested positive for the coronavirus, the first known case in the NHL. And finally, a woman from Vancouver, Washington, has become a laughingstock on the internet because she revealed that she has spent the last few days mistakenly washing her hands with, instead of soap, a block of cheese. SportsCenter brought to you by Bolt 24. Being an athlete is 24/7, so stay hydrated with Bolt 24 with antioxidant vitamins A and C, electrolytes from watermelon and sea salt, and no artificial sweeteners or flavors. Bolt 24, all-day hydration for all-day athletes. For all the latest headlines and information, tune in to SportsCenter on ESPN Radio all throughout the day.
So we've got some sound here from Michael Irvin on Get Up, and you will hear Marcus Spears and Mike Greenberg start their stammering when Michael Irvin gets rolling on the Deandre Hopkins move and what it is that happened between Deandre Hopkins and Bill OBrien. Before we get to that sound, though, I don't know if you saw this on Twitter. I don't know who Chase Edmonds is. But he plays running back for the Cardinals. I had not heard of him, and he put on Twitter when they made that trade, when they trade David Johnson, who was his teammate, for DeAndre Hopkins, he says, we got a whole-ass armed robbery, and then a laughing, crying emoji. You don't normally see that when a respected veteran that was in your locker room like David Johnson goes, but it was the consensus opinion throughout the sport and outside the sport that was a ridiculous trade that Houston made. But before we get to that Michael Irvin sound, we're asking you via Twitter, hashtag DanAction, because there is a dude in Bollywood movies who looks a lot like me, and they just showed a movie poster. They just showed us a movie poster that has someone who looks just like me holding a gun and a Bollywood action star. We're looking for the name of the action movie that I would star in at hashtag DanAction. Chris, what do you have there in terms of early submissions? We will take these throughout the show. Maybe we'll get somebody to be a winner when we're done and send them a gift basket or something.
We got a bunch of submissions so far. Dan Action movie titles, Daction movie titles, if you will. These are all starring John Claude Fat Dan. You got John Thick. You got Fitness Impossible. You got, I don't know, but between the Die Hard series, I don't know if I want to go with Die Hard or Diet Hard.
Diet Hard!
We got Top Gut. We got The Fat and the Furious. We got Hambo. And this is not an action movie, but it's just funny. We have Rounder.
Rounder.
Hashtag DanAction is where you go if you want to send us some of your submissions. So here is this Michael Irvin sound, and I want you to listen to the stuttering. Roy is still laughing at Fitness Impossible. He is clapping his hands and laughing. I've never seen him so happy. Let's get this sound from Michael Irvin here on Get Up.
I couldn't rest my mind on it. I called him again 24 hours later, like late yesterday. And then he was willing to talk more. And I said, tell me what happened in Houston. And he went into it. He told me, he said, Michael, it was a bit of a power struggle there because Coach O'Brien thought he had too much influence over the locker room. He called DeAndre Hopkins in a meeting to talk about this and to kind of, I guess, hash it out. In that meeting, he started the meeting with telling DeAndre Hopkins this. That blew my mind when DeAndre told me this. He told DeAndre Hopkins, he said, hey, the last time I had to have a meeting like this, it was with Aaron Hernandez. I was like, what? He put in Aaron Hernandez in this meeting? He said, yes, he did. He said, Michael, that blew my mind that he would even bring that up. I've never been in any trouble. I don't know why would he equate me with Aaron Hernandez. And from there, the meeting just deteriorated. You know, he got into talking about DeAndre Hopkins, because DeAndre Hopkins has a few kids from different women. And he said, you know, he told DeAndre he doesn't like that he has his baby mamas around sometimes. And from that, I think the relationship just went bad. And thus, we got a trade of DeAndre Hopkins from Houston for basically, like I said earlier, a ham sandwich, all because of that relationship.
Wow. Marcus, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I can't believe what I just heard.
Yeah, that about covers it, right? Like that's
exactly the way I would have handled it if I was Greeny. Dan, what are your thoughts?
Well, Marcus wasn't exactly ready for what he was not expecting that. I wish if we had our normal library here, I would go right now to the Chuck Norris sound of me throwing it to you when Chuck Norris was on with us, because you aren't never expecting me to throw it over to you. But yes, that's exactly how you handle that. If someone throws the dead fish of Aaron Hernandez on your lap, that's how you handle it.
Mine was in a much less pressurized situation. I mean, it was just Chuck Norris.
I know, but we were scared. We built it up for months here. Are you like the writer Troy Johnson, who puts on Twitter, I feel like this is happening to a whole lot of folks, right now in quarantine. He says, day 1 of quarantine, I'm going to meditate and do body weight training. Day 4 just pours the ice cream straight into the pasta.
He's losing his mind.
This is what's happening, right? Like everyone's going crazy. No one can get toilet paper. As soon as we come out of this, the toilet paper industry is going to crash, because nobody's going to need any toilet paper, because people are stocking up for months at a time. Everybody is nuts and locked up in their house, and all we're doing is watching a bunch of bad movies.
So Dan, yesterday, because we have, there's nothing to do except sit inside. So I tried meditation for the first time yesterday. Now, today I plan on trying yoga.
Wait a minute.
But I got to tell you, meditation, you know me so well, Dan. Can you imagine me doing medication? Yes, you can. Meditation, because you really have to focus your mind on one thing towards one positive energy for a sustained period of time. And I failed miserably at meditation. I gave up after a minute and a half. I can't do it. I use one of those apps.
Most people do. But how did this start? Explain to me, because yes, your mind races. You have ADD. Meditation would help very few people more than it would help you if you can achieve some sort of serenity that will make you stop thinking about whether or not the Colts made the right move or not. But I also see you put it on the poll, Guillermo. Is Stugotz the worst meditator in the history of meditation? Because I have questions like, how did you start? It would be very good for you to do that.
It started with I think it was a LeBron James Headspace commercial. I think it started there. I said a couple of weeks ago, and I said to myself, I always wanted to try to meditate. And so since we're all sitting at home doing nothing, I figured this would be the perfect time to try meditation. So I tried it yesterday. I downloaded the app. And unfortunately, because it was so the NFL news was coming in so fast and furious, perhaps I should try this during a slower sports time.
Yes, okay. Yes, you're checking your phone during meditation?
Yes.
Billy, tell us what it is that you've got there. I'm curious what you've got.
I think I downloaded the same app that Stugotz did, because I downloaded an app that popped up on Instagram, and then all of a sudden, once I opened it, LeBron appeared, and I was like, what is he doing in here? And then it said that it wasn't free, and I had to pay $7.99 a month, and I only had a 7-day trial, and I was like, I'll think about this in 7 days and see where my head's at.
LeBron has been an advocate recently of meditation, of finding peace in your mind. What did he mean the other day when he said he was headed to Wakanda? Like he's Is he said he was going off into hibernation. No, I know that's a Black Panther reference, but I'm saying, what did he mean, that he was leaving, that he was going somewhere? Because it sounds like all these teams have given permission of their players. I'm genuinely curious, Stugotz, like honestly, the thing that I just read you about pouring ice cream into pasta, I am curious how many NBA players are going to come back straight up fat. Like straight because they're not being told, they're not being run through practices by coaches. I'm dead serious about this. Like, they're not going to have the strenuous games, the strenuous practices. Like, the first few games when basketball returns is going to have fat people in it. Put it on the poll, Guillermo, at Le Batard Show. Are the first few NBA games going to be played by fat players?
If you missed any of our interviews, check them out on demand in the Dan Le Batard Show podcast, brought to you by Capital One. With Capital One, you can open a new checking or savings account with no fees or minimums. Welcome to Banking Reimagined. Capital One, what's in your wallet? Approval required. Capital One N.A., member FDIC. Dan, it is time for Straight Talk. It is brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless.
I love this career evolution of Michael Irvin, where he has the ear and access to the receivers who are in trouble. They like talking. He's got relationships because he's already lived it, because Michael Irvin is the guy who was going through the courthouse as a champion many years ago in a fur and a fedora as he makes his way to some sort of criminal proceeding. He really has access to these guys where they give him some honesty. All we had heard from DeAndre Hopkins is that he felt sensational leaving Houston. We didn't have any of those details. And Stugotz, I didn't think it was possible that Bill OBrien could look less wise than he did in simply making the trade. But that is a real bad leadership breach, that you are trying to connect with your player, and that's some of the language you're using. It's like you have no connection points to your player if what you're doing is Aaron Hernandez and baby mama stuff, and then you're just turning around and trading him without, testing the market in a way that that DeAndre Hopkins would have brought you something. But like any of us, don't you think that any of us would have been able to get more for DeAndre Hopkins by calling around than Bill OBrien did? I'm not even kidding.
Yeah, 100%. All of it's inexcusable. If what Michael Irvin said is indeed accurate and true, that is inexcusable, obviously, and shocking and surprising, and why they need a GM there. So the coach doesn't have to have conversations like that when he's trading a player or getting rid of a player. That should be the GM's job, to have those conversations. It should not be left to Bill OBrien to have meaningful conversations when he appears to be incapable of it. The other part, from an on-the-field standpoint, yeah. Like, Dan, it is inexcusable for a man to run a football team and have one of the three best wide receivers in the NFL and trade him, in his prime, by the way, and trade him for that little, when any team would have offered more than what they got for the services of DeAndre Hopkins. It's inexcusable to have that guy running your football franchise.
DeAndre Hopkins went an entire season without dropping a pass, a guy who's being thrown to that often. Like, you can make the argument. I think it's him and Larry Fitzgerald, right? Like, doesn't Larry Fitzgerald, isn't there some stat about him that he's got more tackles than he does drops in his career? Like, when you think of hands in that league, you think of those two guys above all other guys. And the idea, it is the coach's job. I've told you this before. Like, I think the baseball manager should actually be named baseball middle manager. Like, it shouldn't even be just manager. It should be middle manager is what the baseball manager should be named. And in the case of Bill OBrien, who's now, he's got the power of that organization. He's got the power to trade. The idea that you can't find a place to connect with a talent like that, when it is your job to make sure that the best, most talented people that you have, that you are an ally to them, and that you're insulting them, and that you are offending them, and that they are then saying when they get out of there that it is sensational to be away from you. And you've got an Arizona Cardinal over here talking about this was armed robbery, that we get this guy for so little. He caught a break yesterday that all this Tom Brady stuff, he's caught a break for 2 days that all this Tom Brady stuff has been happening because all of sports media would be sitting here flabbergasted at how it is that you can be this kind of incompetent in terms of losing a talent of that level.
Fitzgerald had, as of last year, 29 career drops and 37 career tackles.
That's a funny stat.
It really is. Dan, here's the other quick thing, and I'm sorry about that. Maybe your most talented player, Hopkins was probably second. Your most talented player is Deshaun Watson, and you just took one of the best wide receivers in football away from your most talented player, Deshaun Watson. Like, there can't be a whole bunch of people that are happy with Bill OBrien right now inside that organization. It's insane what he just did.
It's okay to trade him. You just have to get back the Odell Beckham haul. Like you can't be getting David Johnson, who's not even in his prime the way Deandre Hopkins is in his prime and is a bad contract on top of that. And you take on all the money like that. It was stupefying, like stupefying. If you had told me that you could get David Johnson for not very much at all, given how disposable running backs are, you know what? I would have been not surprised at all if David Johnson had been traded and they couldn't get very much back for him. The idea that they could get DeAndre Hopkins back for him is more shocking than DeAndre Hopkins actually being traded. The idea that the Arizona Cardinals could flip David Johnson into a top 3 wide receiver is more surprising than that. I want to go to Chris here, though, because he is scouring the internet, and you guys enjoy making fun of me. There's a Bollywood poster. We put it on Twitter. At Le Batard Show. The dude looks just like me. He's holding a gun. He's in an action movie. And we've been searching for names for that action movie at hashtag Dan Action. What do you have there, Chris?
Bunch of submissions coming in here. Some not so good, some so good, some so bad that they're good. We got Mission Empanada. We got Triple XL. We got 300 pounds. We got Plump Fiction. We got The Fudgitive. We got Burritos Way.
Hold on a second. I need what
Tropic Thunder.
The Fudgitive. Hold on. Slow down.
Snack Panther. And then my favorite thing so far is Flan in 60 Seconds.
All right, start again. Hold on a second, Chris. After Fudgitive, go through the list again after Fudgitive, please.
Okay. Burritos Way. We got Snack Panther. We got Tequila Mockingbird. I don't even know if that's an action movie, but it was just funny. And then, like I said, Flan in 60 Seconds.
What do you think about this from our Reddit here? And if you want to follow our Reddit, there are a lot of clever people there. The Expandables. What do you think of Snack Reacher? How about Casino Royale with cheese?
Yeah.
And Fry Hard with a Vengeance.
That is Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Everything for less, only at Walmart. ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. All guests on the Dan Le Batard Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Joon Lee going to join us there in just a second. Here's your SportsCenter update. NFL news, Jason Witten signed a one-year deal with the Raiders. Teddy Bridgewater has signed a 3-year, $63 million deal. He did that with Carolina. The Eagles will not pick up their team option on Malcolm Jenkins. An Ottawa Senators player whose name has not been released has tested positive for the coronavirus, the first known case in the NHL. And finally, Wayne Brady unveiled a water gun on Let's Make a Deal that measured 12 feet and 7 3/4 inches long during a 1990s themed episode. According to Guinness, it's the world's largest water gun. The show previously earned a Guinness record when it unveiled the world's largest cereal bowl, which weighed in at 3,504 pounds. What? SportsCenter is brought to you by Bolt 24. An athlete is an athlete 24/7, and part of always being prepared is always being hydrated. Bolt 24 has antioxidant vitamins A and C, electrolytes from watermelon and sea salt, and no artificial sweeteners or flavors. Bolt 24 is all-day hydration for all-day athletes. For all the latest headlines and information, tune in to SportsCenter on ESPN Radio all throughout the day.
Joon Lee is going to be on with us in just a second, and Roy Wood Jr. is going to be on with us at noon Eastern. He's going to he wrote something interesting about how all of this is going to kill everything that's happening around us is going to help kill stand-up comedy, and there are a lot of things that are going to change in business and entertainment over the coming months as the economy screeches to a halt. And I thought he wrote an interesting article about what's happening with stand-up comedy, and we will talk to him at noon Eastern. But Joon Lee covers baseball, ESPN senior writer, and he can help us understand what is going on in Boston right now. Joon, thank you for being on with us. What are the precedents for a city losing a couple of stars of the caliber of Tom Brady and Mookie Betts in a short period of time?
There actually is a precedent for this. The Chicago Bull, the city of Chicago in general just lost Michael Jordan and Ryan Sandberg in the 90s. And that's kind of the most recent example of this. But, Tom Brady and Mookie Betts were the two most popular athletes in the city of Boston by a pretty large margin. Brady obviously is kind of on a different pantheon, level, I think people view him in the same way that people view Ted Williams and Bill Russell in the city. But people are pretty shooken up. These are the two most popular guys in the city, and they've meant a lot to the city of Boston in very different ways. But it's definitely a major change to this kind of landscape of sports culture in the city, from the newspapers to the talk radio to just like the general small talk around the region. It's a really big change that I think people are going to start to kind of get a sense of what the ramifications of losing kind of two iconic figures in the city are.
How does one quantify like a region hurting? How does one quantify how New England feels about losing someone of Tom Brady's stature?
It's interesting because we have an entire generation of Patriots fans, and I grew up in the Boston area. I was born in 1995. I was 6 years old when Tom Brady became the quarterback of the New England Patriots, and that was the only team that I followed my entire life. Tom Brady is the only quarterback that I followed on a week-to-week basis my entire kind of sports aware life, dating back to my childhood. And so there's an entire generation of football fans in New England who have been raised only on Tom Brady and have never had to go through the tumultuous situation of having a quarterback competition. They've never had to kind of experience the struggles of following an NFL team that doesn't have a quarterback, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. And, I think when you look at this current generation of Boston sports fans that are coming up, we've seen so many different championships from the Patriots, the Celtics, the Red Sox, and the Bruins. That I think that I was talking to some of my friends when the Patriots when the Rams beat the Rams in the Super Bowl, and people kind of said they felt numb because of how much winning had happened, as dumb as that might sound. And so now I feel like we're in a period where people are going to begin to reflect on everything that happened in the city over the course of the last 2 decades, and all the memories that have kind of come from that. And I think people are kind of starting to get a sense of how ingrained Tom Brady was in the daily life of New Englanders every single day. Just as a topic of conversation, he had the Performance and Fitness Center in downtown Boston. Tom Brady was not just an athlete in Boston. He was the most famous person in the region by a long shot. And, every time I would go home for Christmas services, around the holidays, Tom Brady's name was mentioned every single year in the Christmas service as someone that everyone kind of, rallied around and brought people together in the region. And I know can be a controversial figure outside of the New England region, but for a lot of people in Boston, he was kind of this, perfect apolitical figure for a very long time that fueled a lot of, relationships in the city.
Joon, I say this to you and everyone in Boston respectfully, get over it. I seriously, welcome to reality. Try being a Jet fan, a Met fan, a Knicks fan. Try doing that, because no city and no set of teams has had a better 20-year run than your set of teams up in Boston. So, boo-hoo, you lost Tom Brady. Get over it, okay?
It's really funny just because, I think before Brady happened, and he was kind of the start of the success for so many of these teams, New England fans and Boston sports fans in general were so optimistic and pessimistic. You got the Christmas Bambino, you had everything that happened in the 80s with the Red Sox. The Patriots were irrelevant for such a long time. The Bruins hadn't won a title in such a long time. The Celtics were rebuilding after Larry Bird. People in Boston were not optimistic, and it's kind of funny how quickly things flipped in the city, where it went from people having no hope to people, the fan base becoming, in the eyes of a lot of people, the most arrogant fan base in America. And it was funny to just see how quickly things flipped and how people quickly forgot how long they had suffered as sports fans in the city.
Guillermo, put it on the poll, please. Can you say, with all due respect, boo-hoo, get over it, at Le Batard Show? Joon Lee with us. He covers baseball, among other things, ESPN senior writer. So help me understand, does Boston feel like Tom Brady was disrespected?
I think it's a complicated situation because I think over the course of the last, 15 years, especially as the Patriots dynasty has kind of grown for such a long time, the people have adopted the mindset of Coach Belichick. I write about this in the story that, one of the people that I talked to, he works in construction in Boston, and the mindset he's taking is next man up. We've been doing this for such a long time, and I think that Belichick has prepared people with so many shocking releases. I think Tom Brady has talked about how much the release of Lawyer Malloy early in his career affected his kind of mindset in approaching his job professionally. I think a lot of fans around the region have kind of adopted that same mindset. Next man up. People have been speculating about how long Brady would be in a Patriots uniform for probably 6, 7, 8 years now. So this is not a conversation that people haven't been thinking about for a really long time. It's just that now that it's happening, it's just kind of sinking in. Now we're starting to kind of feel what the ramifications of everything that's happened are now.
Why did you yell at a car rental commercial yesterday?
There was it was like a Hertz commercial. I was just watching ESPN, and the two guys shook his hand, and I've been inside of my apartment in New York since Thursday pretty much. I just haven't seen people, and so I just see two people shaking their hands. I was like, oh my god, this is something that's not happening. It was very off. It was just like a reflexive thing, and I was just like I need to go outside and see people.
You're losing it, aren't you, Jim? You're losing your mind.
A little bit. I recently moved into to my first solo apartment, so this has been a real test of how much do I need to not see people on a day-to-day basis.
So, June, who is I'm wondering, because you've had so many big names and faces of that city, who's the guy? Who do you think? Is it Jason Tatum? Who's next in Boston?
I mean, it really feels like Tatum at this point because, he's obviously taken that superstar jump over the course of the last couple of months. But for a long time, people thought that guy was going to be Mookie Betts. People did not brush past the fact that he was a superstar black baseball player in the city of Boston and what that meant symbolically for the city as well. I think a lot of people around the city were incredibly aware of that, of what he meant symbolically. So I think a lot of people were anticipating Mookie to kind of step into Brady's shoes when Brady eventually, wasn't a Patriot anymore. And so I think the surprising trade of Mookie has kind of shook people in terms of looking towards a vision for the future of Boston sports. And I guess the light now shines on Jason Tatum as he's kind of taken this next step. And, it'll be interesting to see how involved he gets in the city. Mookie did not get involved in kind of local Boston as much as previous Red Sox stars have. Lots of the Red Sox stars from Ortiz to Pedroia have had local Dunkin' Donuts ad campaigns. And Mookie didn't really do any ad campaigns. He was famous despite the fact that he didn't really seek out publicity and was incredibly popular despite of that too. And so it'll be interesting to see how kind of Tatum interacts with the city of Boston. He talks a lot about his love of St. Louis, which I think people in Boston take note of when athletes aren't constantly talking about their own city, that the city that they play in. But he has been getting more involved recently in the community too. So it'll be interesting to see just how that relationship dynamic, begins to unfold because there's a massive superstar, power vacuum in the city of Boston now. I think there's an opportunity for players and athletes in that city to kind of step up and kind of foster in that next generation of Boston sports.
Joon, thank you for being on with us. We appreciate it, sir.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Guillermo, put it on the poll, please, at Le Batard Show. Are you yelling at people who are shaking hands in car commercials? Mike Ryan is shaking hands with his elbow, and it's the same elbow that he sneezed into. At Le Batard Show is how you vote on the polls.
You deserve a better way to stream the sport you love. ESPN Plus gives you an exclusive access or just exclusive access to thousands of live events from the UFC, MLS, MLB, NHL, and more. Plus, you'll get replays, the entire 30 for 30 library, and ESPN Plus original shows From superstars like Peyton Manning, Alex Morgan, Kevin Durant, and LeBron James, stream sports the way they were meant to be, always in HD, on the big screen, or on the go. Sign up now at ESPNplus.com.
So we have some dueling PSAs to go to, and we also have some hashtag Dan Action that we need to go to in terms of action movie names. But before we get to Matthew McConaughey, who has done a PSA, let's begin the bidding here. We're going to duel these against each other. Billy, put it on the poll. Which one is the better PSA? Is it Ed Orgeron or is it Matthew McConaughey? Let's start with Ed Orgeron, please.
For every winning team, a key to success is learn the playbook. That's true in football, and it's also true as we take on the coronavirus. The spread of the coronavirus is a serious matter, but there's a game plan for keeping residents as safe as possible. Everyone has a role to play as we face this challenge together. Cover your cough with your elbow like this. Wash your hands thoroughly, a full 20 seconds. If you're sick, stay home. If you think you should be tested, phone your health provider first. Avoid close contact with anyone who's sick. Protect your at-risk family members, including the elderly. If you're not at risk, take care as you go about your daily business. Get the facts now from coronavirus.gov and your state health department. We're all in this together. Let's team up to protect our health.
So that one is funny because his voice is amusing. Let's hear what Matthew McConaughey has to say. This is from his Twitter account. Let's hear Matthew McConaughey.
Hey, everybody, McConaughey here. Just want to say in these crazy times that we're in with the coronavirus, let's take care of ourselves and each other. Let's not go to the lowest common denominator and get paranoid. Let's do our due diligence, take the precautions we need to take care of ourselves and those of us around us. Right now, more than ever before, we're all more dependent on each other than we ever have been. But we have an enemy in the coronavirus that is faceless, that is raceless, sexless, non-denominational, and bipartisan. And it's an enemy that we all agree we want to beat. We want to beat, and we're going to beat him. All right? So in this time when people are going to move on, the economy is going to be in shambles for who knows how long, there is a green light on the other side of this red light that we're in right now. And I believe that green light is going to be built upon the values that we can enact right now. Values of fairness, kindness, accountability, resilience, respect, courage. If we practice those things right now, when we get out of this virus this time might be the one time that brings us all together and unifies us like we have not been in a long time. So, yes, let's see if we can make some lemonade out of this lemon that we're in the middle of. Turn a red light into a green light. Just keep living.
We are not unified, McConaughey. We're fighting over toilet paper in the grocery store.
He's always living, right? He's always keep living. He does a fantastic job, a marvelous job of sounding very deep and philosophical while saying absolutely nothing.
That's right. All both of them need to say is wash your damn hands and get in the house. Chris, at Batard Show, you can send us hashtag Dan Action Movies because there's a Bollywood star who looks a lot like me. What do you have there, Chris? What are your best recent nominees?
I like a lot of these. We got 007 Meals a Day.
Oh, for the love of God.
We got Indigestion Day. We got The Fattiator. We got the Gouda Father. The Italian Sub. Steakin'.
Steak in.
And I think my favorite this batch is The Frying King.
All right, you got to pick a winner here before the end of the show. You got to pick the very best one. Hashtag Dan Action is where you go. If you want to submit movie names, you could feel free to do any joke that isn't about me being fat if you want to take a chance on something outside of fat.